Another gritty, gutsy effort from the Cavs, but it was too little too late to knock off the Boston Celtics. Boston defends home court, knocking off Cleveland 113-98, ending the series in 5 games. A gentleman's sweep. Cleveland gets game 2. The Celtics get games 1, 3, and 4 in Cleveland, and game 5 tonight in Boston. And that will end the 2023-2024 campaign for your Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll talk about Evan Mobley. We'll talk about Darius Garland. We'll talk about Marcus Morris, JB Bickerstaff, and everyone on this roster coming up in tonight's final post-game reaction show of the year on the Ultimate Cavaliers Show. Well, you can't blame the effort. And a loss and a season-ending loss sucks. There is no other way to put it, but the Cavs did battle tonight in pretty heroic fashion. Evan Mobley played his best game in his entire playoff career, and there were a lot of things in his particular performance that should make you feel good about entering the offseason. Darius Garland, on the other hand, boy, oh boy, he comes off a 30-point game in Game 4. Game 5, he reverts back to the what the hell are you doing, DG version of Garland, and it was 2 steps forward for 4 steps back. Marcus Morris comes off the bench and scores a season-high 25 points, but it wasn't enough as the Cavs end up getting run off the court, losing by 15 tonight to the Al Horford, of all people, led Boston Celtics. I'm going to start with Mobley and Morris. We're going to talk about Darius Garland. We'll talk about the Celtics in a second. Then we're going to look at the big picture for the Cavs, how we got to where we are, what went wrong, and what precedes us before we get ready to begin the 2024 offseason. So starting with Evan Mobley, because the Cavs do deserve credit for fighting hard. And JB Bickerstaff, for all his shortcomings, does deserve a lot of credit for having a team, sans Donovan Mitchell, no Levert, no Allen, compete till the bitter end against the Boston Celtics team. There were some things he could have done better throughout the series, throughout the regular season, throughout this game individually, but he does get credit for not allowing this team to collapse under the bright lights of the TD Garden. On the positives was Evan Mobley. By far, bar none, unquestionably his best offensive game, maybe not just of this postseason, but of his entire career. I know 33 points isn't a career high for Evan. He had 38 against Houston last season, but he had 33 points. He was 15-24 from the floor. He took 3 threes. He missed them all, but he took them. That's a positive step. He had 4 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He turned the ball over 3 times and had a minus 15 in the game. Evan Mobley tonight did everything we had been begging him to do. In the post, he was decisive. He made quick reads. When he got it in the high post, which we had been begging for, and I mean begging, at least when I say we, I mean me, I had been begging the Cavs to get him in the high post as a playmaker, an early offense initiator, earlier in this series and throughout the regular season. Tonight, they finally did it, and the results were terrific. He was blowing right past Luke Cornett and Al Horford, which, granted, are Luke Cornett and Al Horford. Mobley should be able to dominate those two, but we know Evan Mobley. He comes in and out. His offense isn't there on a nightly basis, but tonight it was. 15-24 is no joke, and even for a guy who shoots most of his shots in the restricted area around the paint, he was 15-24. Take the threes out, he was 15-21. It's an incredible shooting percentage. It's 60%. That is the Evan Mobley you dream of in the future. That's the Evan Mobley who you can build a franchise around, or at least as one of the 2 cornerstones of a franchise. Now, when I say all that with Evan Mobley, it is worth pointing out that he did all of this, including his better offensive game in Game 2, and tonight his best offensive game in Game 5, as the center, as the only true big man on the floor. And for all the discussion we'll get to this offseason, and we will talk about the future outlook of the Cavs here in a little bit, it is no coincidence that the Cavs offense and certain players in the Cavs offense who needed to flourish for the Cavs to have an opportunity to win this game and this series played at their best with one true big in the lineup. I am out. I'm just telling y'all right now, I am out on the 2 big pairing. Unless Evan can all of a sudden develop a 3, then there's no way they work together. And I think Evan is best actually as a stretch 5 who could initiate offense through the high post as the only big with 4 perimeter players cutting and running off him. It's no coincidence to me. It's not a surprise that 2 of Evan's best offensive performances of his career came in the lone big man spot. He still has a ways to go. He is by no means a finished product. He's not strong enough. His finishing isn't good enough. His handle is nowhere near where it needs to be. His jump shot is way too inconsistent. He is still a work in progress. Do not get me wrong. But these are the flashes we had been waiting for. These are the flashes we needed to see to remind ourselves in the belief we had in Evan Mobley. Now, some of y'all may have jumped off the bandwagon early, and that's okay. And this game doesn't mean that he will be this version of Evan Mobley in the future, but it reminds you of the potential that number 4 has for the Cleveland Cavaliers. We know what he can do defensively. Tonight was a glimpse of the offensive side of his game that the Cavs need if they're ever going to reach their highest potential. We'll talk about DG in a sec because as good as Evan was, Darius was that bad. But I got to give Marcus Morris a shout out. A buyout guy, a guy who hadn't played much this series, a guy who in Game 5, Jarrett Allen's first game he missed against Orlando, came in and scored 12 points off the bench, including a crucial three-pointer and a crucial box out late in the game that sealed the win for the Cavs. And we know that series went to 7. Every win was monumental. Tonight, 33 minutes, 10 of 13, 5 of 6 from 3. He had 3 rebounds. He was a minus 13, but 33 minutes played, 25 points. I'm going to repeat that. 33 minutes played, 25 points. He was the Cavs' second leading scorer. He was the only Cav outside of Evan Mobley to score more than 12. Think about that. The Cavs' only 2 12-point scorers. We're not talking 20. We're not talking 25. We're not talking 30. We're talking just 12-point scorers. Or I guess more than 12 technically, so 13 and up. Mobley and Marcus Morris. If you want to tell me, hey, JB, where was Marcus earlier in this series? He couldn't have helped us. I'm not going to hold you back. I'm not going to stop you. Marcus Morris had his ups and downs against Orlando. He played a great Game 5. Did not play well in Game 6. Game 7, frankly, I don't remember how he played, so I'm going to guess it was pretty negligible. He hadn't played much of this series at all. It's outside of garbage time. But he's a guy that you bring in on the buyout market, hoping he can provide a spark. And tonight he did. He was the only reason they were in the game in the first half, or the main reason. He had 14 in the first half. He had 11 in the second half. Him and Mobley combined in the second was the Cavs offense. Darius Garland and Max Strus, Okoro, they weren't providing it. Sam Merrill had 9 points off the bench, but the guys who needed to provide more consistent offense from the guard positions were MIA today. So give Marcus Morris some credit. Someone compared him to Joe Flacco. He's the basketball Cavs version of Joe Flacco, and there's some reality to that. Off the bench out of nowhere, left to dry, comes in and provides a spark the team needs. It just wasn't enough. And it wasn't enough because guys like Darius Garland laid a big fat egg tonight. Darius coming off a 30-point performance in Game 4. I'm going to say that one more time. Darius scored 30 points in Game 4. He was 12 of 27 from the field. He was 4 of 13 from 3. Tonight, he had 9 assists to only 2 turnovers. That's the positive. But the Cavs needed a scorer. And tonight, Darius was 4 of 17 from the floor and 0 of 4 from 3. We talked about since Game 1 of this series till the end of the series, we talked about on every show in between how Boston defended the pick and roll. They switched, they put Horford in drop, and they had their defensive ball guy, whoever guarding Darius, chase him around the screen. I did a whole breakdown today on the show about, there's an article coming on the Cavs tonight. Just be ready. That's all I'm going to say. We did a whole breakdown on the Cavs tonight, or earlier today on the show, about, oh boy, there's some news coming. I'm just going to say this. There is some news coming. Yeah. Just be ready. Have your alerts on for some Cavs news breakers coming up. There's some news coming. I'm going to just leave it at that. We did a whole film breakdown on Darius Garland today attacking Al Horford in the drop. An entire breakdown. And tonight against Al Horford, he couldn't get by him. There's no reason in the world, zero reason in the world, Darius Garland shouldn't be able to get past Al Horford 9 out of 10 times. Every once in a while, the defense is going to make a stop, whatever. But 9 out of 10 times, Darius Garland should be able to get past Al Horford, get to the cup, get the shot he wants, and/or draw the defense in and kick it out. Tonight, he was going east to west, trying to shift Al Horford's weight left to right as opposed to going north and south. And when Darius goes east to west, It does not equate to good, smart basketball. It does not. I'm sorry. It does not. So Darius Garland, in a game where the Cavs needed him to step up the most, in a game the Cavs needed their best player on the court, their max contract player, the guy who was a former All-Star, the guy who was a former USA Select Team member, to step up and provide that offensive scoring punch. Because say what you want about Mobley and Morris, you're not expecting a combined 57, 58 points from those guys. You don't expect that. That's a luxury. But you expect more than 12 points from Darius Garland in a closeout playoff game when Al Horford is the primary guy you're taking off the dribble in these pick-and-roll situations. I'm sorry, Darius. You played great in Game 4. You played like dog crap tonight in Game 5. 4 of 17 is unacceptable. It's not. There's no world where Darius Garland should only have 4 made field goals in a game that's up and down like tonight was, in a game where he was getting some decent looks, but he couldn't get past Al Horford. And I'll say it again. I'll say it again. I'll say it again. Darius, when he's decisive and he's quick in his decision-making, and most importantly, when he's going north to south, is at his best. His east to west game, his left to right, has not been there this season. For one reason or another, who knows the true cause of it? It has not been in his repertoire this season like it has been in the past. We've seen flashes of it. Remember the 3 he hit late against Chicago on Valentine's Day? He got Alex Caruso with it behind the back. 1 step left, boom, right, pull-up jumper. But it's been few and far between. And if you can't get past Al Horford, Darius, we have some bigger issues at hand. That's a matchup the Cavs had to win to have a chance to win tonight. And if you told me Marcus Morris was going to score 25 points and Evan Mobley was going to score 33, the Cavs would have a damn good chance to win this basketball game. The reason they lost by 15 is they got an 11-point performance from their all-star point guard. Max Strus had 12. He had 15 last game. Strus had 9 assists, 7 rebounds. If you get 12, 9, and 7 from Strus, despite the fact they didn't shoot great, you can live with that performance. Dean Wade played 22 minutes. Marcus Morris took a bunch of his minutes. Dean Wade did not play all that well. 3 points, 1 of 3, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Oh, Lordy. I gotta put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Just be ready. I'm gonna put it at that. Just be ready. But you can't win if you're getting contributions from 3 of your 4 starters. 3 of your 5 starters, excuse me. 4 of your 5 starters. Wade, Okoro, Garland, Strus. They combined for 31 points. 4 starters combined for 31 points. Evan Mobley scored 33 by himself. Think about that. How are you going to win a damn basketball game when 4 of your starters combined for 31 points? It's not possible. It is not possible. And I don't know what's in Darius's head. This was an opportunity with Donovan Mitchell and Caris Levert out to be the primary guy, to be the initiator, the creator, the facilitator. It is your team, Darius. It was for the taking. And you laid an egg. It is what it is. I don't know how else to say it. From Boston's standpoint, you give Al Horford credit. He played a monster game, 6 of 13 from 3, 8 of 15 from the floor. He had 22 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. He was a monster. Tatum was 1 assist shy of a triple-double, 25, 10, and 9. You held Jaylen Brown in check. You held Derek White in check. You held Drew Holiday in check. Pritchard had 11 off the bench. The Celtics, at the end of the day, player for player, were just more talented than the Cavs in this series, especially when you consider the injuries. You know, we did our player draft before the series started. We had Mitchell 1, and then we had 4 Celtics in a row. And I think that's pretty much exactly how it went. If you want to argue Mobley should be in the top 5 over a guy like Derek White, who only had that 1 good game, sure. But, you know, they're right on the fringe. Same with Drew Holiday. But with Mitchell out, with Levert out, with Allen out, like, the better team won. Looking big picture here at the Cavs, because I don't really know how else to talk about this game. I'll be honest. Like, Mobley and Morris were awesome. DG was bad. You got a pretty good Strus game in terms of his overall performance. Merrill chipped in. Niang and Thompson gave you nothing. Okoro was bad again. I mean, he only played 12 minutes. That should tell you everything you need to know. He didn't play great. He didn't play terrible, but JB only trusted him with 12 minutes. Dean Wade only played 22 minutes. Merrill played 28. Merrill played 2.5 times as many minutes as Isaac Okoro. So, there's not a ton of tape to break down off him. He passed up a three, got it back, made a tough layup. His defense was all right. But, the better team in this situation, one, give the Cavs credit for fighting. But at the end of the day, you can't get a stinker from your best player and what should be your leading scorer and expect to beat a talented Boston team on the road. It just wasn't going to happen. The fact that the Cavs were even tied at halftime, or down 6 at half, despite the fact that Boston made 12 threes at a 48% clip in the first half, was pretty incredible. Darius, by the way, had 9 at half. He only had 2 in the second half. Strus had 9 in the first half. He had 3 in the second half. Cavs started on an early 5-0 run in the third. Then Boston bounced back, took the lead. Cavs never got it within 7 again. And then at the end of the day, it was what it was. If Al Horford's going to beat you, Al Horford's going to beat you. You can't take away everyone from a good offense. Tatum, Brown, those guys were cooking, or at least drawing the defense in, kicking it out. And if Horford's going to make threes in the corner, that's what you got to live with. And that's the benefit, by the way, of having a stretch big. It all comes back. Can you win with 2 bigs? That's a question JB Bickerstaff, Kobe Altman, and the Cavs are going to have to answer this offseason. Let's speak about the offseason real quick. Because where we're at right now in the Cavs' future, present, whatever you want to call it, they're at a crossroads. They have some difficult, and I mean difficult, decisions to make this summer based off the head coach, based off what you do with your 2 guards, based off what you do with your 2 bigs. 3 main questions. A, is JB the right head coach for the team? 2, can Donovan and Darius play with each other? And 3, can you win with 2 bigs? We know Jarrett and Evan can play together. The question is, can you win at a high level with those 2 on the court? Personally, I already said, I don't think the answer is yes. To the question of, can Darius and Donovan play together? I don't think you're getting the best version of Darius if he's playing alongside Donovan Mitchell. So to answer the question in the big picture, the answer I think is no. And is JB Bickerstaff the right coach for this team to maximize its full potential under? I think he did a pretty damn good job this year keeping everything in place. It could have collapsed, but I'm not sure if his offensive schemes are intricate enough to win in the playoffs, or if his adjustments game to game are good enough to lead a team past a first-round win over a 4 or 5 seed matchup that goes 7 games. I don't know. In order of confidence of those 3 questions, I'm most confident you can't win big with 2 non-shooting bigs. I'm second most confident in the fact that the point guard and the shooting guard together don't work, that they are better off as individuals than they are as a tandem. And I'm least confident in the fact that I don't know for sure JB's not the right guy. And that's not to say he is or isn't. I'm just saying in those 3, that's the one I'm actually least confident in of my answer. JB deserves credit for getting this team to fight. He deserves credit for keeping this thing from crumbling during the regular season when Donovan got hurt, even earlier, from keeping it from crumbling when Evan and Darius got hurt. But he's not perfect. He's certainly not without fault here. There's a lot of people to blame about the Cavs' shortcomings this season. Now, I say shortcomings with the caveat that I am fully aware this is the deepest playoff run this team has made without LeBron James since 1993. I am fully aware that it is progress, tangible progress from where this team was last year. I am fully aware that the expectations for this team entering the postseason was probably exactly what we got right here, a quasi-competitive series with the Celtics in the second round. I get all that. I also know when the season started and for stretches of the season, we were looking at the Cavs as a team that we thought could compete for an NBA championship. At least I did. On paper, the pieces were there. Some of the player development didn't happen this year. You look at Isaac Okoro, and he had a good regular season, and he's certainly not a bust in terms of a draft pick, but the development of Isaac Okoro over the last 4 years has been lackluster. This is a guy who was drafted with a top 5 pick, and he played 12 minutes in a crucial playoff game, an elimination game, when the Cavs really only played 7 players. Their wings tonight were Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, Max Strus, and Marcus Morris. And Okoro can only get 12 minutes in that action. His offense is nowhere near where it needs to be. At this point, if I told you Isaac Okoro's maximum potential was Lou Dort, you take it and run to the bank, right? Like, Lou Dort's a solid, really capable defender. He's a pretty damn good three-point shooter. He's making life hell right now for Luka. But if that's the ceiling, if Lou Dort's the ceiling on a guy you draft 5th overall, you got a bit of an issue. I'm not even confident Isaac Okoro can dribble. Rather, let's make threes in the playoffs. This is back-to-back playoff series where he was virtually unplayable. His development, not good enough. Evan Mobley's development, as much as I praised Evan Mobley earlier to start this show, this is year 3, and he doesn't have a consistent offensive game. I think he's best as a facilitator and a passer at the high post. I'm not quite sure what his best offensive go-to move is yet. He's certainly not a three-point shooter. He's certainly not a guy you trust play in and play out to take guys in the post. The reason you don't switch pick and rolls in the NBA is you're afraid the little who you switch onto the big could potentially get punished in the post. And for most of the season, the Cavs weren't even comfortable throwing the ball to Evan Mobley in the post. His development hasn't been there. Is that on coaching? Is that on the developmental staff? Is that on misguided and misjudged expectations for a player when they took him? Who knows? Darius Garland. It was a season from hell for this guy. I understand the jaw injury was a real factor. I understand he lost his grandma. I understand that those things play a role into how you execute on the court. But Darius had a subpar season. And this is a guy who, when the Cavs made the trade for Donovan Mitchell, felt pretty confident in their analytics and their scouting that this guy could play off the ball if Donovan took over the lead ball handling situation. And through 2 years, I just don't buy it. I've seen Darius with and without Donovan Mitchell. And the Darius we see on most nights without Donovan Mitchell looks a lot better than the Darius we see with Donovan Mitchell. I'm not sure if it's confidence. I'm not sure if it's a mental makeup thing. I'm not sure exactly what the reason is. All I know is what my eyes tell me, and I think Game 6 was a perfect example. He does little things in Game 6 that you don't see him really do with Donovan Mitchell in the backcourt with him. Now, I fully understand tonight he was not good enough, nowhere near good enough. But that's a misstep by this entire organization, thinking those two can play together. And we'll see what happens this offseason. We'll see if the Cavs have to choose between one of the two. It may come down to Mitchell making the choice for him, but if Mitchell says, I'm staying, the Cavs may have to flip and say, hey, we can't maximize Donovan with Darius, and we're not going to get the best version of Darius with Donovan, so we got to ship him out. We'll find out. Jarrett Allen. I have heard some very, very, very concerning things about Jarrett Allen. They'll come out in the next day or two. I promise you'll hear them. I'm not at liberty to report them yet, but Jarrett Allen, there's a good chance he's played his last game as a Cav too. We'll see. The two bigs, I think Mobley proved he's best as a 5. Is his body capable of handling an entire season as a center? We'll find out next year potentially, but you see what Evan can do when he's the lone big. And if you're choosing between Jarrett and Evan, despite the fact that I really like Jarrett Allen as a player, Evan Mobley's got more potential. Evan Mobley's a guy who you would build around, not Jarrett Allen. We've seen 2 different teams now say Jarrett's a nice player, but he's not obviously a building block of the future. He can be an asset. He's a talented piece, and I think you could actually get a decent amount in return for a Jarrett Allen trade this summer, but it is certainly not a foregone conclusion that he's going to run it back. Max Strus, why was he better in Miami than he was here? Dean Wade, what the hell happened to him for the last 2 months of the year? I still haven't got clarity on that knee injury situation. I know Chris Fedor wrote an article on it, and I know he had a kid, and he had to get some work, and he alluded to needing some offseason knee surgery, which is why he's out, but he's a guy that certainly would have helped. Ty Jerome, MIA, all these G League guys. It sucks that Craig Porter Jr. got hurt, but all these G League guys, high expectations. Amani Bates, clearly wasn't ready to play during the regular season. The Cavs have not done, in my opinion, a good enough job maximizing the talent they've had on this roster over the last 2 seasons. Since they got Donovan Mitchell, I understand that pushed the entire agenda forward. That pushed their entire timeline up significantly quicker, and that has hampered Evan Mobley. I fully understand that because they're in win now mode, not develop now mode. But that's a judgment call from Kobe Altman down to the bottom of the coaching staff. And I just don't think they've handled the situation necessarily in the right way to maximize this window. Because there's no guarantee Donovan resigns. And if Donovan walks, what are you left with? What's a core right now of Darius, Evan, and Jarrett Allen getting you in the Eastern Conference? A 5th seed at best? You tell me. Leave it in the comments. Let me know. No one's without fault here, guys. JB's offense, I think, is outdated. Kobe Altman's 2 biggest offseason signings, Max Strus and George Niang, were not nearly good enough in the playoffs. Evan Mobley and Darius Garland are far too inconsistent. Donovan Mitchell struggled to stay healthy. And I know that's not really a fair criticism of Donovan, but in the team's biggest games, he was not available to play, which is a disappointing letdown. Obviously not his fault. I'm not blaming him for the injury. I'm just saying in the biggest moments, your best player wasn't there. Caris Levert, Jekyll and Hyde to the max. There's not a single guy on this organization. Like I said, from the GM down to the 12th guy in the G League roster, who in my opinion is completely without blame here. And it comes to the bigger picture question of, is this core four good enough to compete at a playoff level? It can win games in the regular season. We know that. We saw it last year. We saw it this year. But is this core four good enough to compete with the best teams in the East? And they, this year, had Donovan not got hurt, had Caris not got hurt, had Allen been healthy, I don't think it's far-fetched to think that this Cavs team could have beaten the Celtics in a 7-game series. I don't think it's crazy. But that's just my mind telling me that. I don't have any physical evidence. I have no tangible stat or no tangible game to look at and say, look what the Cavs did with these 4 guys against this team. I don't have it. The last time we saw this core 4 play together, they got smoked in Game 4 against Orlando. Mind you, with most of this team healthy enough to play, Donovan's injured and Jarrett was out, Orlando took this team to 7 games. That's the matchup they wanted. So was this team really that good, or did they just happen to get the matchup they wanted and were better than a young Orlando team? Boston was clearly better, and the injuries took their toll on Cleveland, no doubt. And maybe part of the reason this team is so beat up is J.B. Bickerstaff played these guys a lot of minutes during the regular season. I'm just saying that could be a reason to why some of these Cavs players just got worn down by the end. Obviously, the bone bruise for Caris Levert was a result of what happened in Game 4. Donovan, the calf strain, he says it's not a result of the knee injury. How did the knee injury start? Did he play too many minutes in a certain game? Who the hell knows? I'm just drawing correlations and drawing lines to potential reasons as to why the Cavs were so injury depleted late in the season. Injuries happen. Like, that's part of the game. But I'm trying to think around the rest of the NBA. Did any other team lose 3 starters or 3 of their top 6 guys to injuries in the postseason? Did any team lose? Well, the Knicks are dealing with injuries. Randall, but he was already out. They've lost Robinson and Anunoby, so they've lost 2 starters. No team's lost 3 of their top 6. And the Knicks, say what you want, Tibbs plays his guys more than anyone else. So maybe the high minute load does contribute to the worn down bodies come playoff time. I'm just a little frustrated at the overall outcome of the season. I'm not frustrated with tonight's effort. They battled their asses off tonight, and they get kudos for that. And they deserve their flowers for that. But this just feels like a lost season for the Cavs. And even though it was a successful season in the sense that they reached the second round of the playoffs for the first time since 1993 without LeBron James, which does matter, despite that happening, it never felt like we got a chance to see the best version of this team. And if you agree with me, let me know in the chat. If you disagree, let me know too. But I don't think we ever got a real opportunity to see what the full potential of the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2023-2024 could be due to injuries, due to style, due to the collection of talent that was put together on this roster. Because there are some major flaws. Like, just roster-wise speaking real quick, the 2 offseason acquisitions they got this summer were George Niang and Max Strus. The Cavs don't have a real wing on the roster. Let's call a spade a spade. Like, how many... There's only a couple of Jason Tatums and Jaylen Browns in the league, but how many 6'7" defenders can they throw out there on one of those guys? Like Dean Wade? That's it? Right? Like Isaac Okoro is 6'4", 6'5". He's not a real wing. He's a guard size who plays the wing out of necessity. Max Strus is 6'4". He's a guard playing the 3 out of necessity. The Cavs just didn't have the roster construction or the right pieces in place to defend some of these teams with bigger wings. That's their number one need this offseason, a wing with size. And on tomorrow's UCSS, we're going to break down some of the potential offseason targets to fit that exact need for the Cavs. I'm not going to get into it tonight. We'll do it on the show tomorrow. But that was a glaring hole entering last season. They addressed the shooting, but they didn't address shooting with size. And in the playoffs, their lack of size, it got brought under a magnifying glass and proved to be one of their fatal flaws. They struggled to rebound, and they had no creators from the wing. Their only creators were DG, Donovan, and Caris. And in tonight's game, Evan fits into that category, but for the most part, it was a 3-man, 3-headed attack from the creation standpoint. That's it. Like that's it. JB deserves a lot of blame in this situation too. Don't get me wrong, but at some point, and we said this last year, like he can only play the guys he has available on the roster, and the roster was constructed in a way that was better than last year, but still was certainly flawed. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm frustrated because this team never reached its full potential. Part of it's injuries. Darius and Evan got hurt in December. Donovan gets hurt late February, early March. Mobley rolls his ankle. Jarrett gets hurt in the postseason. Caris gets hurt in the postseason. We never saw this thing fully click. And to me, the biggest miss on this year is the chance to get the answers we needed to some of these questions about the fit of certain players with each other. Mobley, in my opinion, can play the 5 if needed. I don't think there's a place in basketball right now for a non-shooting 4. Find me another non-shooting 4 in basketball who doesn't play along a shooting 5. So find me another team that doesn't play at least one shooting big. One big who could stretch the floor. Spoiler alert, doesn't really exist. There's a reason for that. So you tell me, are the Cavs that much smarter than everyone else that they're going to reinvent basketball in a way the rest of the NBA can't figure out, or they're missing the bigger picture? You tell me. It's tough to win with 2 little guards, but we saw in Game 2, and especially in the third quarter of Game 2, how DG and Mitchell can fit together if everything's perfect. The issue is 9 out of 10 times things aren't perfect in basketball, and that's a defensive liability in the backcourt. But is their offensive capabilities together, does that outweigh their defensive downfalls? I don't think the answer is yes. You guys can convince me if I'm wrong, but I think at the end of the day, those two are just better off separated. And then the coach. Can it be salvaged? Has his voice rung hollow in the locker room? Do the players like him? Who knows? They've defended him at times this season. They've questioned him openly to the public at times this season. Remember when they blew that 26-point fourth quarter lead to the Clippers and multiple players to the media afterwards? And by media, I mean they told Chris Fedor. I wasn't quite sure what the hell we were doing defensively. And when you're that late in the season and you're openly questioning your head coach, that's going to raise some eyebrows, and rightfully so. I know there were rumors earlier this season that JB was on the hottest of hot seats. Had he not won a game earlier in the year, he may have gotten the can early, and then they went on that 18-2 stretch over 20 games. He saved his job midseason. So who knows? I don't think we'll get any answers tomorrow. I think they'll take the weekend, or at least a few days, to ponder the future of this franchise, to ponder what's the best direction to go, to ponder some of the questions that I've put out in front of you guys. But the reality of the situation, and then I'll get to some fan comments. I feel like I'm losing my voice, so I don't want to go too long here. But the reality of the situation here is at the end of the day, this Cavs team on paper, and on paper is not reality. Keep that in mind. But on paper, this Cavs team has a top 15 player in Donovan Mitchell, another all-star in Darius Garland, another all-star technically in Jarrett Allen, and a young quote-unquote unicorn who they tabbed a unicorn. The franchise tabbed Evan a unicorn. That wasn't us. The franchise tabbed him a unicorn, and you have some solid role players. That's on paper. On paper, if you close your eyes and I give you that blind resume test, that's a team that should be way more competitive in the second round of the playoffs than what we saw in reality. Close your eyes, and I'm going to tell you that again. You have a top 15 player. You have 2 all-stars who aren't that top 15 player. You have a so-called unicorn who made an all-defensive team last year. You have guys who have shot over 40% from 3 throughout the course of an entire NBA season. You have 3 different guys of that caliber on your bench, and you have Sam Merrill. Close your eyes. That, on paper, is a team that should be competing for a championship, not just should be competing to get out of the second round of the playoffs, and that's why I'm frustrated tonight. All right, I'm going to get to some comments. There's 762 comments. I got 13 super chats. I'll start with the super chats. I feel my voice going, so if I don't get to all these, I do apologize. I appreciate y'all tuning in here. But it is what it is. Let's see. Armac Dog says, hey, McNuggets, what do you think the Cavs are going to do? What do you think the Cavs are going to do to be a top team next year and compete for a championship? Armac Dog, they need a wing with size who can shoot. They need a legitimate 3-and-D wing. You have the pieces to trade to get it. Allen could be flipped into something. Garland could be flipped into something. If you trade Mitchell because he won't sign an extension, that's obviously your biggest trade chip. Evan Mobley's the only untouchable on the roster in my mind. It's a 3-and-D wing who can really shoot. Make sure you tune into UCSS tomorrow. We're going to do a big breakdown on some realistic targets, some not so realistic targets, some pipe dreams. We'll do that all on the show tomorrow. But simple answer, a 3-and-D wing who can realistically shoot. Next up says Tomas Rogala. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm so proud after that performance. Thanks, Mike, for this year. See you next season. We'll be back stronger. Hashtag let him know. Tomas, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. Batman said, told you Darius Garland is a bum. He played like a bum tonight. I have no argument, Batman. I got no argument. Chris Lowry said, JB's got to go. Too much talent wasted on this team, man. Luke Walton, the head coach next year. I feel pretty confident in telling you that if JB is not the coach, I'm pretty sure it'll be a brand new staff, top to bottom. It won't be Luke Walton. They'll look outside as opposed to promoting someone from within. Black Play Game says, don't worry, the Nova Knicks will take care of Boston. Yeah, I mean, that'll be a hell of a series. I can't wait. I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see that that's what it comes down to. They still have to beat Indiana one more time. Thibodeau and those dudes are dogs, and I don't think Boston has that dog in them. Boston's more talented, but I'm not going to count out the Nova Knicks with the way they play and the heart they play. The Cavs never made it close enough to really push Boston to the brink. I think the Knicks can. DJ Brobot said, Moohead channel on YouTube said that Mitchell and Caris agent forced JB. Moohead channel on YouTube said that Mitchell and Caris' agent forced JB to sit them all at the same time a few weeks ago, and then today. They're all shady. So Caris, I don't know when that injury happened. I was blindsided by that news today as well, DJ Brobot. The Mitchell thing is real. Like, the Mitchell injury is legit, and we've seen the history of guys with calf strains then turn into Achilles injuries. I don't think Mitchell's injury is fake at all. I'm not saying Levert's is. I didn't know he had that. That caught me by surprise. Batman says, stop it with your clickbait articles. I don't write articles, so I'm not sure what you're talking about. I told you that was a terrible 30-point performance, and you thought it was great. DG is 6-man at best. Hey, 30 points is 30 points, and they need him to score 30. Like, he played a good game for him. Not every game is equivalent. You got to think. If Sam Merrill scores 30, or if Marcus Morris today, for example, scores 25, it's a great Marcus Morris game. If Donovan Mitchell scores 25, that doesn't mean it's a great Donovan Mitchell game. It's based off the player and your expectations for said player. And Darius, who in the first couple of games of the series, played a good game for. I stand by that. He played nowhere near good enough tonight. I stand by that too. Barber FN says, if we build around Mobley, I'm never watching the Cavs. I don't think Mobley can be your number one. But I do think Mobley has shown enough, and with his defensive presence, to be a number two if he continues to develop like that. I don't think he'll ever be the best player on a championship team. I don't even think he's a unicorn. I've said it before. I think he's a really good racehorse. But really good racehorses can be number twos on championship teams. And I think that's his best case, highest ceiling potential future. Core 1789 said, I thought Merrill finally looked comfortable today. First time I felt that way about him in the postseason. Had a nice game on both ends, honestly. Merrill's final stat line, he had 9 points, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 rebounds, no assists, 2 fouls. He's hot or cold. He's a guy you got to play to see what he has. If he has it, he can be a contributor. If he's off, he's not going to give you much. HC Cummings says, unfortunately, Cavs must trade Jarrett Allen if Donovan says or not. JB is average at best, and they have reached his ceiling with this team. Yeah, it is fair to wonder whether or not you think JB is a good coach or not. Completely irrelevant. This is the same conversation Pittsburgh Steelers fans are having with Mike Tomlin. At some point, a coach's voice just doesn't resonate the same way in a locker room anymore. And there's a chance, whether you like JB or not, that the team just isn't buying into his message anymore. And if that's the case, whether it's JB, whether it's Mike Tomlin, it was the case for Pete Carroll in Seattle. That's kind of the reason he stepped down. And Mike McDonald's the new head coach, is because his voice just wore thin. And that happens over a course of time. And JB Bickerstaff coaches this team hard. Like, he coached this team really, really, really hard. And some veteran players and veteran-laden teams don't necessarily like to be coached in that fashion. And that could sometimes lead to friction between players and teams and vice versa. So we'll see what happens. I don't expect any decision to be made immediately. I think it'll take a few days for any decision, either keep JB and or move on from JB. But I do think there is a good case to be made that regardless of how you feel about him as a head coach, his voice is worn thin in the locker room. Next up, Sean Ivory says, I'll miss these Cavs playoff streams. Let them know. Sean, I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone for tuning in, by the way. This is hands down by far the biggest post-game stream on YouTube. So I appreciate you guys for choosing to watch this over some of the other ones out there. And I do mean that from the bottom of my heart. HC Cummings says, great basketball analysis all year long. Salute. I appreciate it, HC. And Batman says, I was mad when I wrote that. My bad, McNuggets. Hey, Batman, you're my guy. Listen, you're in here every time. I appreciate you. Part of the reason I like doing this is I love interacting with you guys. I need to get Anthony in here to help monitor the chat because there's 838 comments. There's no way I can read them all. But I just do want to say, literally from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you guys. I'm going to try to get through a couple of these real quick. There's some OGs who are in here on every stream, whether they like what I say, whether they don't like what I say. So I appreciate you guys, everyone from Plasma Void. And I'm going to miss a bunch of names. I'm sorry. I'm just going to throw out a couple that I know are in here. But like DJ Brobot's in here all the time. Sean Ivers in here. Evan 409. Donnie. You guys all make this a lot of fun. And I appreciate you guys. All right, let's see. Reese Holt says, why couldn't Mobley play like this the whole series? It's a great question. I mentioned it earlier. He was the 5 the whole series. Evan is a guy that confidence-wise, if he's not getting going early, I think he lacks the ability to gain confidence later in the game. He's a guy that early and often, in my opinion, should get the first play of every game, run it through Evan, try to build his confidence. And if he feels good, he's going to be more aggressive. I think today he also knew that they needed to hear and needed him to step up and be more aggressive to have any chance, and he answered the bell. Let's see. What else we got? Let's see. Edward says you can't trade DG. Nobody wants that contract. I actually think you would be surprised. I don't think his value is crazy high, but I do think that there is some value because there are teams that desperately need a point guard. Orlando and San Antonio come to mind. Those are the two teams I'd watch for a Darius Garland potential trade. I also think the New Orleans Pelicans will be heavily involved with the Cavaliers in some capacity this offseason. Let's see. I see Evan 419 singing the Gotta Go song. We have some build around Mobleys, and we have some absolutely no chance build around Mobleys. Lawrence says, resign Marcus Morris right now. Hey, I got this is serious. Marcus Morris is never going to be a guy who plays 25 minutes a game for you at this stage of his career. I would take Marcus Morris back on my team 100 out of 100 times. His toughness, his mindset, his mentality, his veteran leadership, and his ability to step in big moments and not be scared make him a valuable asset on the bench. I don't know what the hell he's going to get in free agency. I hope he gets paid. Marcus, you deserve your money. But I would love to see him back in Cleveland next year, regardless of who the key pieces are on this team. I've seen everything from trade Jarrett Allen to trade Evan Mobley to trade Donovan Mitchell to trade Darius Garland, which means everybody is up on the block, which I don't think is outrageous for the record. I don't think that's outrageous. Let's see. I feel my voice going, guys. I feel my voice going. This is not good. I got a big weekend this weekend. Let's see. Mary says, I like the fight. Rough going with so many out. Not every loss is the same. We made them fight for it. I enjoy your analysis. Thank you. I appreciate it. See, listen, there's people who like what I do. There's people who hate what I do. That's part of how it works. That's how it works. Sorry for the tease. Yeah, it's my bad. I got the text mid-show. I couldn't ignore it. It's coming. Don't worry. It'll either be Kristen, or Christian, excuse me. Slandering DG, but the blame should go to JB. Darius Garland played like ass tonight. Christian, there's no other way to put it. Like, I gave him all his flowers in game 6 when he had game 4 when he had 30, and he played like ass tonight. I just call a spade a spade. JB was not perfect either, and I think I criticized JB enough as well, but there's nothing. There was nothing good to say about Darius's performance tonight. If you have something about Darius's performance that you think is worth noting on a positive side, drop it in the chat. I'll try to get to it at the end. I don't think it exists. Let's see. I'll tell you this. Agents play a big factor in a lot of these decisions. I'm going to just leave it at that. The agent talk, there might be a little more to it than what you guys think. Shoot. Listen, I really need Ant here to help moderate this because there's so, you guys are incredible. And I mean that in the best way. There's so many of these that I have missed. Ant just text. Ant's listening. What's up, Ant? Ant, next time this is the last one, but next year I need you in here to help moderate the chat and pick out some of these because I'm trying to scroll through 800 on the fly and respond, and there's no way I could do this. There's no way. There's no way. All right, so I'm gonna end with this. Listen, I appreciate all you guys. I really do. I apologize. There's so many of these. There's 800. I'm on only 210. I'm scrolling down. It's tough. I'll end it with this. I would be shocked if changes aren't coming this offseason. Pretty major changes, not just to the staff, but to the roster. There is some scuttlebutt about the fits, not just from our standpoint, but from outside perspectives looking in. And when sharks are circling, there's usually going to be an attack. And I'll leave it with that. There's stuff going to come out in the next day or two, tonight maybe, that's going to shed some light on some of the situations we've been talking about all season long. And it's going to give you guys a lot of clarity and answers on some of the things you have been hoping to get some answers on. That's all going to be all the time we have on tonight's Ultimate Cavs show. We went 50 minutes. 50 minutes for Game 5. I appreciate you guys. You guys are the best. And we'll talk about the offseason and some of the potential targets for the Cavs this offseason. Peace.